right, welcome back to Reconsidered. This is our 6th episode, and we have a very special guest today. Her name is Elnaz Moghangard, and I've totally made that American. She's Persian. We actually went to high school together, and she's now in law school. So congrats, Elnaz.
Thank you.
Okay, how do we really say your last name?
Okay, so even I struggle with it sometimes because it is a little bit difficult to say, but my first name is Elnaz, and my last name is Moghangard. So
that's beautiful.
Somebody else might hear that and say, you're not pronouncing your own name right, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about millennials today. But before we get into just talking about millennials in general, we're going to talk about a blog that Elnaz has called Millennial Nomaad, and where she features millennials who are doing really cool things, creative things. And so, Elnaz, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I started Millennial Nomad a couple years ago, but it's only been recently developed more and kind of taken the stage in my life. The whole idea behind it is that I wanted to catalog the stories of young people doing really amazing things, young people questioning themselves, their lives, what they want, and finding a way to mix creativity and practicality to kind of form the life they want to have and to, turn their dreams into goals that can become reality. I think our generation just has a lot of potential, and they're super creative and talented, and it's just finding the right balance between taking what we think and feel and envision and turning them into something tangible that we can give to the world. So I kind of go around and I seek out, a variety of different types of people, students, professionals, startup founders, everything, and I kind of get a look inside their minds and pick their brains a little bit.
Who was the last person that you interviewed? And what did y'all talk about?
The last person was the founder of a marketing company. Sorry, not PR. Marketing company called Imagine Media Consulting, actually based out of Atlanta. She's pretty cool. She started in her 20s, kind of just became something she never really thought she would do, but she just began to do something she loved, realized she was good at it, and then kind of turned it into a business. And now she actually has been thriving and working for a lot of pretty big companies.
Cool.
It's exciting.
And you're going to actually interview Ethan, right?
I am. I'm going to interview him as well for my website.
Nice.
So be on the lookout for
that. Okay, so how many people have you interviewed so far? Do you know off the top of your head or guess?
I think about maybe 16 so far. At least so far that I've posted.
Right.
I have more, but I haven't posted them yet. Oops. I need to do that.
That's awesome, though. So you said you started a couple years ago, but in the past, would you say year it's kind of come to a full you're busy with it now?
Well, it came, I guess, to fruition in the last year. Mm-hmm. Right now, it took a pause for the last few months because I am in school. I just entered law school, so that's been taking up a lot of my time. But at the same time, I think the groundwork was there starting about 2 years ago, but I was so afraid to show people. I was so afraid to work on it, to invest my time, and I think that fear kind of held me back for a little while, and I couldn't really work on it. So it never seemed good enough, but I finally decided I'm just going to put out what I have and let it organically evolve. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I do it because I love it, not because I have a specific end goal. I just have a vision, and I'm letting it sort of unravel. So the next few months, I'll be coming back with a lot of new material. I've been learning to organize my time, something I struggle with, and I think that if I do that really well, I can make both my academic and my creative goals kind of happen at the same time.
Well, what allowed you to get over that fear of working on it and working towards it?
I think I just became super uncomfortable and miserable because I realized I was too scared to move forward, but I was also not happy with where I was in life. And I figured, okay, well, it's going to be more of this, and it's going to be this discomfort and this misery, or it can be I get up and I do something, and that might be a different kind of discomfort and misery, but at least it's different, and at least I'm not bored, because somebody like me, and I think a lot of other people, boredom becomes destructive. You mm-hmm. sit there and you become anxious, and yes. You become, you stop really being yourself. So I decided that I have to do something different and new, and I really want to put myself out there and just try it and see how people respond to it. And I was really proud. I think the day that I actually formed the website, got together with a couple of friends who really helped me, I was just really happy to have a finished website, and I didn't care what people said. I was just happy I did it, and it's just kind of taken.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what people say, because A, B, and C, you're doing things that are positive with your life. Millennial Nomad is something positive. you're working towards that. Even if it's not paying you, you're doing something with your life, And so it doesn't matter what people ultimately think about what you're doing because that's what you're doing. You know what I mean?
And I think that it's a positive influence on,
Yeah.
not just the people that you interview, but everybody that gets to read those stories. And
Right.
I liked a lot of the stories. When I first found out about it, I was immediately like, hey, like, what is this about? I really just reached out to Elnaz and I was just asking her, like, just tell me about it. And then I think you actually asked me if I wanted to come on or not. And
we've been trying to plan that for a while.
Yeah. So it kind of worked out, though, that, I started this podcast. And then, Riley and I were talking about, more people that we wanted to interview. And I was like, oh, we got to interview Elnaz. And it's great that you're here during, the Christmas and holidays and everything. So we finally got together.
I'm excited.
So do you have anything else you want to talk about? But yeah, with Millennial Nomad, you talk about how you had that fear, and didn't you say that was also kind of a theme that is a part of Millennial Nomad in its existence?
Yeah, definitely. So I think another part of it all that helped me kind of get over my fear and put my work out there and put myself out there is that when I started to interview people, I started with friends that I knew and then eventually ventured out into strangers. That was an easier transition for me. By listening to other people's stories about how they overcame their fears, it really motivated me too, because I realized that here's all these different people with different pasts, different lives and lifestyles at the moment, and if they could get over their fear, then I can too. Why not? I feel like everybody has that potential in them. So just hearing other people's stories was really great. But yeah, the two main topics I always discuss are fear and vulnerability, because I think so many people are afraid to say that they're afraid of something because they think it'll make them weak. And I think people are also equally afraid to admit they're vulnerable about situations or to allow themselves to feel vulnerable, because we're just taught that that is not the way that you should present yourself. That means you're weak. And I think that every single person that I've met that's transformed themselves either internally or just created something amazing or had a big success has been someone who's really confronted themselves, a fear or some vulnerability, and used that as a catalyst for growth. I think it's the only thing that can disrupt your pace of life and make you stop long enough to say, what are you doing?
Right.
And where do you want to go? So I think fear and vulnerability are super important. It's almost a rite of passage. I think without it, what have you been doing? You probably have not been taking enough risks or steps to move yourself forward.
Yeah, because you're not going to gain anything in life that's positive if you are comfortable and you stay comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If you stay comfortable, you're not going to grow. It's all growing is about getting past that fear and getting past being uncomfortable with the uncertainty of life. And like having that uncertainty is what helps your mind get stronger towards being comfortable again. And then you go back to being uncomfortable, and it's just like this never-ending process of being comfortable one moment with your life and then being like, okay, I can't stay here. Even if it's in this small aspect of whatever it is, you can't stay in that forever. And that's what causes fear.
Mm-hmm.
But so fear is also a great thing, like you're saying.
If you're not scared of something, then you're not doing anything daring enough to really, change your life.
You know how to handle fear and change. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also when you really look at what you fear or what really makes you feel vulnerable, you kind of get to know a deeper part of yourself. If you sit and look at what makes you afraid and say, why do I feel fear? Is it a real fear? Is it an illusion? Is it my imagination? Is it an insecurity? You kind of get to the depth of who you really are, and then you realize that that fear was never real. It was just more about what you thought about yourself than anything else.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's really cool that pretty much everybody that we've interviewed has talked about personal growth in one aspect or another. We've never really tried to bring that into we never purposely really tried to bring it into our podcast that I know of. And so the fact that it keeps coming out over and over and over again is beautiful to me, because I find that in my own life to be something that I strive towards, personal growth. And me and Riley and I have been talking a lot about it lately. So it's really cool that it came out in our episode with you about Millennial Nomad, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that all we've been doing is interviewing millennials, right?
Yeah, that and the theme of personal growth comes from the type of people we choose to interview,
right?
And that there's like a theme to the type of people that we interviewed, which can be considered millennials,
right? Yeah, it is true. So we have 3 topics that we from the beginning we decided that we wanted to bring. So the first one is awareness to things that people don't think about, and then appreciation of things that, people should be thinking more about, right? And then finally, understanding things that people don't know, or things that they don't know well enough, or, have a misconception about. We want to really get to the heart of that, and so that you can understand and, shed some light. So we have an interesting topic today, which goes along with, your project, Millennial Nomad. And it's really just talking about the stigma and stereotypes around millennials in general. So, I think we all know the quintessential lazy, entitled, that stereotype. I'm sure we could add a million things about it. But what do you think being a millennial means?
It's a good question. Well, I think there definitely is there are those stereotypes, those stigmas about being lazy, entitled, naive, in a bubble, everything like that. But I think being a millennial is about opportunity. That's my main word. And I don't mean opportunity in the sense where there's plenty of opportunity around you and you don't have to look for it. It's just going to hit you in the head. No, I think opportunity in the fact that we live in a really interesting time where I think one of the biggest shifts have just happened in our lifestyle and the way that we think and the way that we work every single day. A lot of it has to do with technology and other things, other cultural shifts. And I think that millennials have the right tools. And if they look in the right places, the right knowledge to actually take advantage of this and to really make the world the kind of place that they want it to be. Before, maybe we didn't have enough of the tools. Maybe we didn't have the ability to really create our own projects. The fact that you can have this podcast and the fact that I can have my website, that's something before, unless you had the money to invest, you couldn't just have that. And then before the internet, you couldn't even have that. So I think that we have a great opportunity to connect with people now, to put our voice out there, to find our voice, to share our voice, and to bring people together. And I think being a millennial is all about realizing that opportunity and then utilizing it and making the most out of it. So
yeah, because we have things now that, like you just said, even our parents didn't have.
Or even the generation above us, right? So people who are maybe 10 or 15 years older.
Yeah.
And they look at the internet and social media in a much different light than we do. And they use it for different things. And I think I really love that you brought up that opportunity, right? And instead of an abundance of opportunities, it's like there's one specific opportunity for everybody that, maybe they should take, or there's a couple different ones, right?
Or making opportunities.
Yeah, that as well, right? And maybe the internet allows us to make those opportunities that generations previous didn't really have the not just the ability, but the fortune of being able to do.
Well, do you even think that even the generation before us had the wants and desires to do things like podcasts, but they just couldn't? I don't think so. I think that this podcast idea was put into our mind, and then we kind of started seeing that in our mind more, and that's what made us want to.
I somewhat disagree with that, right? Because as soon as the ability to create a podcast came along, there was people doing it, right? So who's your favorite podcaster?
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
And he's, that generation above us.
48.
And there's a lot of people that are in their 30s to 50s that as soon as that technology was available, they hopped on it and they were like, I want to do this.
Maybe I was just thinking that like an age thing, like
right. But it is one of those things where, in every generation there's pockets of few people where they specifically want to do, certain things, right? And it just so happens that we're talking about podcasting, and only a pocket of millennials like podcasts and listen to podcasts and want to make podcasts, and same with every other generation too.
That is true, because there are all kinds of age variations with people who host podcasts and all that stuff. So,
Elnaz, do you actually listen to podcasts?
I do, but I can't tell you one person that I follow. I think I get people send them to me and I listen to them and I like them. They're convenient, but I actually don't have one person that I follow. I probably should.
Being in law school, though, it's probably hard to listen to podcasts. But
it's probably hard to do anything.
I could when I'm on the metro, listen. But at that point, I'm just trying to listen to some music. So the times that I don't have to read and, do this kind of works, I just want to listen to music. But I should listen to podcasts. When I do get a chance, I watch a lot of TED Talks. So maybe switching it to podcasts would be a good idea.
TED Talks are awesome. I mean, those are kind of like they're kind of like mini podcasts.
Yeah.
And they're specific to, something of value, learning something.
And it's only going to work for you if it's something that you want to think about or learn about or whatever. So if you're watching TED Talks, then that's you already pursuing knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The guy that we interviewed before you, he's like a powerhouse for personal development. He read 250 books last year, and he was asking us, we asked him to give our listeners, what's something they can do right now to start, a journey of personal development or advance their journey. And he started the story like, okay, what do you do when you're walking in your class, or when you're driving to work or something? And we were just like, listen to music like everybody does. Well, he talked about the idea that people slowly become, or they take on a little bit of that person or that band, whoever they're listening to. And so he was talking about, if you want to bring more positivity and personal growth into your life, listen to personal growth podcasts, and positive people and motivators and stuff like that. So that was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, he was saying like when you listen to a certain song, you kind of develop that personality for a while, whether it's the rest of the day or that whole week, you have that personality to that song, and then you kind of grow out of it until you listen to a different song or whatever. So
that's interesting. It's like we're sponges.
Yeah, we really are, and we have more music in our generation than pretty much any other generation. I mean, it was huge on our parents, right? Classic rock and everything. But I feel like the way it was then was there was a couple really big artists, and everybody knew them. And if you go to a record store and you got some money in your pocket, you can only walk out with 1 or 2 records at a time. You know what I mean? Where us, we can get on Spotify and we can listen to anybody we want at any time.
Yeah. Local artists, big artists. It doesn't matter.
So we listen to singles or just one song from a bunch of bands, and then it kind of goes through a playlist. Whereas our parents, it was just one album at a time, which is.
And it's super interesting. Everything is really different. But something I would really love to do though would be to read more.
Yes,
I would like to read more.
It's funny you say that because Ethan, Morgan, from our last episode, kind of made us more so Ethan want to read more.
I mean, I've already wanted to read more, right? But it was definitely a little bit more of a motivator.
Yeah, but you would say this is like a newer motivator.
It was more like another light under that fire.
Rekindles the flame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get the books going.
Right, and then now you're saying I want to read more, so that's a super awesome coincidence.
What do you want to read more about?
Well, I usually read self-help books, so it's funny that I don't really listen to the podcast as much because I read a lot of the books. The last one I read was The Happiness Hypothesis, which was super interesting for me. But aside from that, I want to get to some kind of a novel because I haven't read one in the longest time. So I think I'm going to read Norwegian Wood. Someone recommended it to me, and I'm really excited to start that, and I have no idea what it's going to really be about. I just heard it's really good. You need to read it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I trust that person's judgment, so I probably will get that book and read it.
Well, this might be a dumb question, but do you think that because millennials are more involved in electronic type of technology, that do you think that's the reason why you want to read more? Is because you haven't been, because you've been preoccupied with other things and you didn't have books to kill the time like you would if you didn't have your cell phone?
Oh, definitely. I think we're so distracted. I mean, the first thing you do when you're bored anywhere, I've seen, you pull your cell phone out. I've seen a couple of people pull out a book on the metro, and I think that's so amazing.
Right.
But usually they don't, and a lot of people are just on their phones, including me, Instagram, like all that.
Right. It's become abnormal to pull a book out as opposed to the norm of pulling your cell phone out.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a millennial thing, or do you think that's just where we're at in life, like type of thing? Because not only us, millennials, pulling our phones out, but even older people are doing that same thing too now. So,
I think that older people are kind of older people.
I know it sucks to say that.
Yes, I think
just older than us.
The people older than us, I feel like they're also kind of doing the same thing. I mean, I definitely noticed that my own parents, they're not as into their telephones as I am, but definitely, I mean, my mom's on Instagram. My mom just got a Snapchat the other day, which was so confusing. She doesn't even know how to properly use it, but she got a Snapchat because she said this is what all the kids are doing, and I want to keep up with my kids. So she does it so she can kind of stay in touch with me and my brother and my sister. But I'm thinking, if that is how you want to keep in touch with us, I mean, I'll call you.
Yeah.
Like, I'll call you more. I call you almost every day. But I think that, I think books have become a bit more rare, and we have Kindles. I do not like Kindles. Sorry, Kindle. But I just think that holding a book will never be the same as reading something on Kindle. There's something about being away from technology, not looking at a screen, reading words, which are some of the most intimate things you can read about somebody else.
And the texture of a book compared to the texture of your Kindle is...
Right. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of reading off of a Kindle or off even my laptop for too long because it hurts your eyes.
Well, it's different to read from something electronic like an electronic device like your cell phone or a Kindle compared to reading an actual paperback book. There's a different vibe to it.
Yeah, totally.
And
Right.
it's like you don't pay attention to it as much, or the story or anything.
And if you're on your computer, right, you're gonna get a pop up from something. Like I get notifications from my text messages and
it's
Facebook
distracting.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
You start
So,
scrolling through Facebook.
Flip this around for a second. I just want to ask you guys, when you start these podcasts, what's your feedback? Do you feel like people kind of understand what you're doing? Do they respect it, or do you think it's been this constant struggle of getting people to understand, older people in quotations, to understand what it is that you're so passionate about?
Yes, so Riley's actually shown this to his mom and your dad. What was their response?
I mean, they're always super supportive. So I think it all depends on how supportive your parents have always been your entire life, and mine have always been supportive of whatever I do. So anything that I show them, they're going to be like, oh, this is awesome.
So they're already biased?
Yeah, well, they're pretty biased. Yeah, that's what I mean. But I don't know. It's hard to get feedback with this kind of thing because not everybody wants to take the time to comment on Facebook or leave that little 5-second message to say how they thought about it or what they thought about it. So it's hard to get feedback. So I feel like we're having to ask for feedback.
Yeah, I think so. Something that Riley and I have talked about and we really need to do is go back to each episode and pick out our favorite, minutes to 5 minutes segments, and then pull those out, do a highlight reel or a highlight episode or something, and then actually ask people for their opinion on whatever it is, right? To really get some feedback in that. So we're still in our early days, right? This is our 6th episode. And, we've really just been, every weekend for, a month and a half, we did an episode. And then we took a little break over the holidays where we were super busy and stuff. But I think this year, one of our big main focus is focused on that engagement, getting more engagement. So we're talking about strategies to do that, right? So I think it's important to have a lot of content already created to be able to point to something and be like, well, what'd you think about this part and that part and yada yada, so we can have more conversations. So that is, one way. And also another thing is I hope that people listen to the highlight reels and then they're like, oh, I want to check out the other episodes now, or the full episode. So I really don't think that we've gotten that much feedback. The feedback that I have gotten has always been pretty positive, right? So if people get into them, then they're like, wow, that was actually really cool, kind of enlightening, and I learned some stuff.
Well, that being said, if you're listening right now, just take a second and just write something. You don't even have to put a period at the end of the sentence.
Yeah, write what you think about millennials.
Yeah, write something what you think about the podcast. Write something.
You're opening a floodgate though. Come on. What do you think about millennials? It's gonna be a wide range of responses.
don't.
Yeah, that could go.
No, but we want honesty, right?
We do.
We want some positive feedback on our Facebook about what we're doing with Reconsidered, and go give Elnaz some feedback too on Millennial Nomaad.
Yeah, tell me what you like about it. Tell me what you don't like about it. And if you want any kind of improvements or you want to see different kinds of material, I'm very open to constructive criticism.
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about that too. It's important, for personal growth to accept even negative feedback, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I had a buddy who's like, Ethan, if I want you to, get better at something or tell you that you're doing something wrong, I'm just going to be really mean and then you fix it immediately. Because, I really don't want, to do anything wrong, right? That's just kind of my personality, I guess.
No, it's important. I mean, I really appreciate those friends who love what I do because, that feels good.
Yeah.
But I also like those friends who come and say something as blunt as, that font is ugly and you need to change it, or this interview could have been deeper.
Yeah. And things like that aren't meant to take personally. Like, if somebody doesn't like your font, then there's a reason.
Yeah.
You shouldn't take it as oh, I don't like your face, or I don't like something.
At least you can change your font. You can't change your face.
Yeah, you can't change your face, exactly.
I mean, you can tweak it, but
yeah, it's all about being understanding within yourself and having confidence within yourself. And that if somebody says, hey, change your font, that doesn't necessarily mean they hate everything you're about. They're trying to help you better yourself. So instead of taking it personally, you take it as, this is personal growth for me,
Oh, no, I think...
I'm not saying you're not... I'm not saying you're, taking everything personal. I'm just, for everybody listening,
I agree.
Don't be so quick to take things personally, unless it's automatically personal or some insult, that...
Do you think that that's something that kind of defines millennials? Or that's the stereotype?
I was just going to say that's a really great segue for even the 3 topics that you brought up. One of them being understanding, and then going to what I wanted to really focus on, too, is about the concept of communication. I think both of those go really hand in hand. And I think, I don't know if we're more sensitive than before, but I will definitely say our generation takes things
Mm-hmm.
kind of personally, sometimes to a fault. It's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be reactive to certain things when you care about them. I'm definitely that kind of person where I am a sensitive person, but not to the point in which when people say something to me, I take those words as a personal comment towards myself. Or if someone doesn't share an opinion as the same opinion as I do, that doesn't mean, oh, I can't talk to you, which is the worst thing you can say to someone who disagrees with you. And I really think that when it goes to understanding people and communicating with people, you really have to understand that you can talk to someone and not agree with everything they do, talk to someone and disagree with their standpoint, and still be able to sit down, have a respectful, engaging, and super informative conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard to be very clear cut when with your words, because you have this meaning in your head, and then when you put it out on words, it's like whoever's listening to those words will probably take it a different way than what you had in your head.
Right, they
Even
put
if
it into their own personal
they put it in
context.
their, yeah, and that like mixes everything up, and like that's
Right.
why people take things certain ways when it's not meant for it to be that way. And that's why inflection with your tone is so important, and the way that you say things, and you know, you have to like seriously think about it before you say it, and think about
Mm-hmm.
the best possible way to say that,
Right.
so that that person understands it completely, or else what you're saying is kind of being wasted in a sense.
Communication is a skill.
It's hard.
And I think part of that communication skill is also listening, right? And being a little bit patient. Because if somebody is trying to, like you said, decide the best way to communicate their message, you need to give that person a little bit of time. If you watch older movies, it's not, everybody's not just running their mouth as fast as they can back and forth. They're very thoughtful in it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think our generation and even other generations, it's kind of like a lost art, essentially, the art of conversation.
Well, I've always, it's like we think, it's like we listen to reply. We don't listen
Mm-hmm.
to listen. You
Right.
know what I mean? We listen to reply, and then we want to get our statement out, and we're not even paying attention to what that person's saying anymore because we're too busy in our own minds worrying about what we're about to say to that.
Right.
And
it's because something that I think is part of our generation is like a very short attention span.
Yeah.
Which, because of technology,
Oh, definitely.
it's been kind of given to us, or just it just kind of happened.
Well, because we have everything in our grasp
as soon as we want it.
If there's anything we want, essentially we can go get that. And so that's developed an impatient generation.
Especially now with Amazon Go, where you can just like get people to deliver you everything, all your groceries, your toilet paper, like.
No, I think the art of conversation, that comes from interacting with people, that comes from putting yourself in awkward situations, it comes from putting yourself into the world. If you're always just in your mind or in your virtual world and you never take a minute to actually be present in the places that you are, then how can you really develop the art of conversation? How can you learn to develop your own voice, and how can you learn to listen if everything that you are looking for is either something to validate what you already think, or if you're just so used to 160 characters, because anything longer is too much. It's it's extra or whatever.
Too in depth.
Yeah.
So many people just want to have their meaningful conversations through text messaging.
Yeah, it's just not the same, and I don't think it will ever be the same.
Yeah. So you guys know how everybody used to send like just regular mail, and then it went to email, right? And now email is like super annoying, and then like mail is making a comeback. I really hope that one day that it's like awesome when you get a piece of mail. You're like, woohoo, mail!
Oh, I feel so excited when I see a piece of mail with my name on it, other than bills.
Yeah, of course.
If I get a real letter,
or like a postcard or something. I hope that the conversation comes back around. And,
well, there's a different feeling, like if you were writing a letter back and forth with somebody who does that now.
Yeah.
But back when you did do that, it was more sincere.
I think it was too, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever it's somebody's birthday or holiday or something, and I don't always do this, but it's something that I want to do more, is really write a card, and not just get a card and say, happy birthday, Ethan, on it, but really write something of meaning and of value, and telling that person why I'm glad that they're in my life. Not just saying, hey, I'm glad you're in my life, but giving that person specific, things, tangible things, events, or even just general, like, this is how I feel about you kind of statements, but something that's they can actually feel, and that's how I feel like you really warm people's hearts.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I know that for me too. Actually, the power of a letter like that can go a long way because I know that one of my friends from high school, like dropped. She didn't mail it to me, but she dropped me off a letter with a small gift. But it was a surprise, and I came home to it. It was kind of like getting the mail, I just didn't check my mailbox. But I read the note. It was a handwritten note, and it was so random but so nice. Where she basically just expressed um, her gratitude for our friendship and kind of took us down a trip to memory lane. And that was the most meaningful thing
That is cool.
I received in the longest time. And the fact that it was, it coincided with the time in which I really probably needed to hear that from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It was just perfect.
Isn't that funny
it
how
meant
that,
a lot to me.
doesn't that, it's kind of funny how that works out. Like, you don't even really know that you needed that, but then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the universe working in its bigger ways.
Right.
And if only people would, I mean, myself included, could communicate with each other more on a more like sincere level. Like,
Right.
dude, I appreciate your friendship. I wanted you to know that.
Yeah.
Because I, and within myself, appreciate your friendship. So you have to know that.
Yeah.
You know, knowing that within yourself gets us on this higher level of friendship.
And trust.
Me telling you that.
Trust is a huge part of
brings
communication.
Right.
And being open to being vulnerable and stuff. And I think that, you know, like you try and get to that heart of people when you're interviewing them for Millennial Nomad. And, you know, if they didn't trust you, then you would never get to that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I take that trust. It's an honor to have that trust. I think trusting someone with your thoughts and your feelings, it is one of the most authentic and vulnerable things you can do, but extremely empowering when it's in the hands of someone that you know will use it the right way.
Right, and it's good that you understand that. It's good that you understand the meaning of somebody's trust. Because if somebody doesn't trust you, that's, you know, it's hard to even be around that person. And what's the point of being around that person other than trying to make them trust you again? And
well, there's two types of trust, I think. And one is just like trust that they're not going to tell you a lie. And another is for you specifically, they trust that when they tell you their story, you're going to write it and present it in a way that conveys what they really mean, like what their story really is.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's like a trust in your ability and your skill and your intentions, you know. So that's cool too. Okay, so you have 3 like words that you wanted to talk about, and I want to add like trust and authenticity. You're talking about being authentic, but communication was one of them. So we already talked about that one. And then what are the other 2 that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so I just the 3 things that I think our generation can kind of rediscover the art of, since we're using that comparison. I think communication was one, and we spoke about that. I think the second one was compassion. That one has become a huge part of my life, and it kind of mixes in with understanding, and it mixes in with communication, because I think it's really easy to look at people and feel sorry for them and to have that sympathy. It's very difficult to empathize and to try to understand, even if you really have not experienced it, and to feel some deeper compassion. I think a lot of people think that compassion is something very naive. You know, not everybody can be compassionate. The world's not compassionate. The world's tough. Get real. But I want you to look back at, you know, your own lives, and I want anybody who's listening to think about a time in their life that was really, really rough and really emotionally challenging and painful or anything. And then I want them to think about what really helped them to kind of bounce back or to feel whole or to heal. And usually it was some random act of kindness or love or some gesture that someone made or something that happened to them. And it could be as big as your friend or your family really spending that time with you, cultivating their faith in you and nurturing you. Or it could be as small as walking into a store, having the person who greeted you notice you and to treat you with respect and to make you not feel like you're invisible. And those little moments like that are what really kind of unite us and keep us going, because it's so easy for life to happen and for you to get jaded and bitter, and then you forget about the bigger picture that I'm a human, you're a human. We shouldn't be, you know, disconnecting from each other in our sorrow. Sorrow is a great opportunity to show compassion to other people and to yourself. So communication, compassion. The third one I said, I'm forgetting. Did you write it down?
Awareness.
Awareness. Okay, and that ties in because I think awareness is our checkpoints. It's hard to be in the moment and aware all the time, because if you're in the moment, you're just experiencing it, and when you're aware, you're kind of reflecting on it or analyzing it in some way. But I think awareness is kind of like those checkpoints. It's like when you have to go get your car's engine or oil changed or something like that. I think it's just having those moments in your journey where you stop, you reflect, you make sure you're on the right path and you're staying true to who you are so that you can continue the next leg of your journey without losing sight of yourself.
Right. So like one thing you could do at the end of the day is reflect on your day.
Yeah.
Every day.
And if you did that every day, then that awareness would develop and you would start to understand the communication and the compassion and everything else that you're talking about.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
reflect at the end of the day on your day.
Right. I think it's so. I know very successful people who they take their vacation and they don't go and get drunk and spend a bunch of money. They take their vacation and they go and they relax and they reflect and they think about the year, the past couple of months, and then they think back and then they think forward, and what can we do to enrich our lives, make it better, make myself more productive or whatever their goals are. And so I think awareness in that sense is extremely important. In that general like understanding your whole life and where you're in fit at that moment. And then also just like you said, everyday awareness is also really important, right? And if you are aware, then you can look for those opportunities to be compassionate to other people around you, right? And you're aware that this person kind of needs this act of compassion. Or alternatively, you can just be compassionate and then you may not even be aware of the impact that you're having on somebody, like a person at the store who doesn't act like you're invisible.
Yeah, dude, reflecting does a lot. If you just go throughout your day and you don't think back on it, then you're never going to learn anything. Reflecting ties in everything,
Mm-hmm.
It ties in.
It's a skill too.
Yeah, it's a skill that you can develop. And
I think we've done a lot of reflection through this podcast. I mean, this podcast is probably more of a gift to Riley and I at this moment, than it is to a lot of people. And we hope that in the future these conversations can be a gift, right? And that we're communicating a positive message, for sure. I love that. When you chose your 3 topics or 3 words before the podcast started, you didn't even know that awareness was one of our words,
No.
our words for our podcast. So that was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it kind of intertwined naturally, and I kind of thought it would, just kind of seeing your work and then having known Ethan, even though we have not really kept in touch, I see his work. I mean, he pops up on my newsfeed.
yeah.
But also just, I was actually thinking about this when you were sitting like this before, that I have a picture of him from our high school trip to Spain, and he's meditating. And I don't even know if you knew what meditation was back then, or if you did, or I just didn't know. But it's just funny that, life brings you in these loop around circles, and you reconnect with people, and then you find yourself in a different place talking about things like this. It's just kind of really cool to me.
Right, because when you and Ethan were in high school together, you had no idea, obviously, that you would be sitting here now doing a podcast talking about Millennial Nomads, talking about our podcast Reconsidered, even talking about that, reflecting.
Inception, right?
Yeah, there would have been no Reconsidered or Millennial Nomad.
Anything.
I
mean, who's to say that Reconsidered would even exist if y'all didn't go to high school together?
Oh,
Riley always gets so philosophical.
No, think about it. Well, there's no way to actually think about it because
the trail is endless now.
Right. There's no way to know what would have happened because you're in what is happening.
All right, I love this conversation. We've gone off on like so many tangents. I want to bring it back into the topic of millennials and like that stereotype, and how essentially. Here's I'll just go ahead and tell you my perspective on the word millennial in general, right? So we all know the stereotype. And I think that as a generation, we should just embrace the term and then change the view of it, right? Because it's going to be harder. I mean, it's going to be really hard to change the view of it. But how much more, badass or like kind of like spiteful in a good way to be, here's what you think we are, but we're going to tell you who we are, right? And reflect and change and show that we have awareness and compassion and we have creativity and that we will work hard for things that we believe in, and really go beyond that. That just prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Embracing being a millennial. Because I like at the beginning of the podcast, I said, I don't like the term millennial. And you said it too. You don't like the term millennial, right?
Well, if I hated the term, I would not have chosen it for the name of the website and everything. But I don't like to just throw that word out there and say, yeah, I'm a millennial, because it's not the way that people think about it is not the way that I think about it.
Right. But if you embraced it, then other people would start to think about
differently.
It the way you would.
Yeah.
And that would change people's minds on millennials. And then over time, if more and more people did that, the term millennial would become
something more
what
positive.
we would like it to be.
Right. Did you think about that when you titled your blog, your project, Millennial Nomad? Did you think about using it to change the way people view millennials?
Not at the time, to be honest. I mean, it would have been cool to say yes, I did, but I didn't. I just kind of, I was deciding between millennial or modern. I was going to do modern nomad or millennial nomad, and I chose millennial because that is what my target audience is. That is what the people that I kind of engage with. That's who I want to reach, and I chose that name because I guess in my mind, I thought it was a cool word. I think it represents a lot. I think it's super vague, and I did kind of want to add my own idea to it, I guess my own brand to it.
Right.
But I didn't think, people hate the word millennial. It wasn't until I started telling people the name of the website, and then some people actually said, why would you name it that? That's not good publicity, because they thought the name in itself kind of dumbed down what it was.
Don't listen to them.
Yeah, and that was honest feedback that I asked for, and I said, but you know what, at the end of the day, what you get out of it is it's up to you.
That's what counts.
It's not my job is to do the best of what I can and to hopefully do it authentically. And if you like it, cool.
And just because somebody doesn't like the term millennial doesn't mean that you can't use that for your website, because
that they wouldn't like the website either, right? Because they probably would.
Well,
because it shows the millennials on such an authentic
level. That's just
level.
them being ignorant and not wanting to open their mind. That's them just being like, okay, that's them hating. That's what hating is.
I don't know. I don't agree with that completely, right? Because
if somebody heard Millennial Nomad and they did not visit the website because of millennial, then that's them hating.
Well, they were actually not thinking about it in their own light. Like she said, that's bad PR, right? So they're thinking about it the way that they believe other people would think about it, right? So, I have a friend, she posted today on Facebook about this thing about millennials, and she was like, I hate that term. I hate when people use the term millennial, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and it's because of the way that she perceives that other people look and, view the term millennial, and they're trying to put her into this box. And we don't want to be put into a box, right? Like everybody's different, and every generation, no matter what, there's unique individuals everywhere. And I think, first of all, it might just be wrong to just try and put us all into a box and call us all millennials. But I think what Elnaz is trying to do with her Millennial Nomad is show the diversity in what we're doing, right? Because everybody on there is doing something totally different. Like you said, you had 16 people, and you have artists, from artists to business owners, to musicians,
lawyers,
to
entrepreneurs, humanitarians, all over the place, different age ranges, because of course millennial doesn't just mean one specific age. And also, in my little introduction on my website, I do say that, you can be a visionary, you can be an artist, you can be a creative soul, you can be a business person, but what it really means to be a millennial nomad that I kind of distinguished was that you choose for yourself who you want to be and how you want to be defined.
That's awesome.
You create your own definition of happiness, success, joy, whatever, and it's nobody else's. And all I ask is that you do it genuinely and authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And that also ties in with what you were saying earlier about the opportunity that is being developed.
Right. Yeah. And taking that opportunity, kind of seizing it. And
like living in an interesting time and changing the world, how you view it through technology and stuff.
I love that. So it's kind of like that conclusion for us is that a millennial is whatever that millennial wants to be, right? Stop trying to tie it to a huge stereotype, because you can't stereotype us.
Just stay curious, stay motivated, and stay roaming. That's kind of what I say.
Thanks, Elnaz.
No,
so wait, real quick, tell us where, like your Facebook and website, all that for Millennial Nomad. How can people find it and read?
So the website is www. Those two W's, right?
Yeah.
.millennialnomad.com. Nomad is spelled with 2 A's because it stands for aspiring adult.
Nice.
So 2 A's in nomad, not one. I have an Instagram handle at Millennial Nomad. That's it. No spaces, no dots, nothing. And I have a personal Twitter, but that's not as relevant. So yeah, just those two. The website, and I have a Facebook page too, but it's still needs to be updated.
It's in the works.
It's in the works. It's coming. Yeah.
But it exists.
But it does exist.
Great,
yes.
cool.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Reconsidered.
Take it easy.
Cities understand. We drink our wine and wonder why we're really here. What's the point of even asking? history. For today, I'll let it go. You've been good to me, have I been good to you?